like a female hero, an effect, it has been argued, of the powerful discourses on gender during that era, above all the women's movement. But a sketch is only a sketch. Fill this one out with the dimensions of affect, identification, pacing, and audience, and the picture gets kinkier. Yes, the final girl brings down the killer in the final moments, but consider how she spent a good hour of the film up to then, being chased and almost caught, hiding, running, falling, rising in pain and fleeing again, seeing her friends mangled and killed by weapon-wielding killers, and so on. Tortured survivor might be a better term than hero. Or, given the element of last-minute luck, she happens in her flailing on a cup of hot coffee or some other such item which she throws into her assailant's eyes, accidental survivor. Or, as I call her, victim hero, with an emphasis on victim. It's a great moment when she stops the killer, but to imagine that her and our experience of the film reduces to that last-minute reversal is truly to miss the point. The point is fear and pain, hers and by proxy, ours. As the critic Philip Brophy said of horror more generally, the pleasure of the text is in fact getting the shit scared out of you, and loving it in an exchange mediated by adrenaline. It is with the final girl's suffering that the film leads us to identify, and not only narratively, but cinematically. To be sure, we see much of the action through the usual third-person camera. We also see the final girl from the perspective of her pursuers, although these shots are fewer and further between than one might expect, particularly if one's idea of a horror movie was formed during the era in which we were shown countless views of frightened women through the eyes of their tormentors via a more or less sadistic male gaze, views not unlike the one on the British cover. One of the most frequent and compelling images in the horror film repertoire, writes J.P. Talott of the traditional genre, is that of the wide, staring eyes of some victim, expressing stark terror or disbelief and attesting to an ultimate threat to the human proposition. What is impressive, though, and all but unprecedented, are the many shots, some of them excruciatingly long, that reverse that optic, giving us fuller, more intense and unambiguous access to the victim's point of view, in effect, putting us in the mind and body of the prey rather than the predator. The image on the original Princeton cover is a prey's eye view. The dynamic is even more brazen in rape-revenge movies like I Spit on Your Grave, Chapter 3, Getting Even. That film's main character, Jennifer, a city woman who has rented a summer house in the country in hopes of finishing a novel, gets raped and sodomized by a group of local young men. We are narratively and cinematically aligned with her as it happens. This means, among other things, that although we get some third-person views of her tortured body, as well as some views from the rapist's perspective, the governing vantage is Jennifer's, even as she is being violated. We are repeatedly made to see, for example, a screen more or less filled with the image of a man's face bearing down on us as we lie supine. The point was not lost on reviewers. Instead of getting close-ups of a terrified woman staring into a camera, a standard cinematic device equating viewer with attacker, wrote one, the film features similar shots of the rapist's threatening faces. The viewer is thus forced into the position of victim, not villain. Another wrote, the men are so grossly unattractive and the rapes so harrowing, long drawn out and starkly presented that it is hard to imagine most male spectators identifying with the perpetrators, especially as the film's narrative structure and mise-en-scène force the spectator to view the action from Jennifer's point of view. It should be noted that the Jennifers of the rape-revenge films come closer than the final girls of slasher films to being heroes, taking, as they do, the long remainder of the movie to calculate and then execute revenge on their assailants. And who were these spectators? Mostly young men, typically teenagers, seeing as I did Texas Chainsaw Massacre.